everyone, this is Queen Eri. Welcome to Empower Me with Eri podcast. I am super excited that you decided to join us today. We have a phenomenal podcast today. I know that you guys are going to enjoy it. We're going to be talking about the makeover. We're going to delve in a little bit later so that you get the concept of what we're talking about. But we all need a makeover in life. And truly, the things that we've gone through help prepare us for our future. We all face challenges, but what we do with all the challenges are up to us. We literally have a choice, to either stay in the past, stay with the pain that the past brought us, or we can choose to move forward. Life really, you really can't take lemons and make lemonade. But again, we have to be willing to take the ingredients that life brings us, put it all together, and make something beautiful out of it. We were made to overcome, you guys. Truly, Romans 8:28 rings in my ear, and it reminds us that all things work together for the good. That means that even the bad, the good, it all is going to come together and work together for our good. We have to just keep our perspectives right. So today, you all, I'd like to introduce my very special guest to the show. She is a rare jewel. She's handpicked by God. With all of the things that she has encountered, you guys, she is still standing. You guys are going to be blessed by her testimony as we go forth and converse today. Hey, Ebone Marie, what's going on, Princess? How are you? Introduce yourself more and tell us, what's your story? Where are you from?
Hey, Eri. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. So yes, I am Ebone Marie. I am originally from Columbus, Ohio, born and raised, and then relocated to Phoenix, Arizona 8 years ago, going on 9. So I don't even know where to start. So born to a young mother. She had me at 18. And then she died when I was 5, so she was 24. And I was raised by her older sister took me in, and then my dad's mother took me in at a time. So they actually had split custody of me. So I would spend my school year in Ohio and then come and spend the summers in Phoenix. So naturally, I ended up moving out to Phoenix at some point because it's a part of me. Right. And through that, there were many tests and trials. My dad is in my life, but not there consistently. He is on his own journey, as I like to say, which I had to learn to accept his journey. And there was a lot of breaking there that I had to go through and grow through in that. But through it all, God has kept me. He has strengthened me. Yes. He has molded me. He has shaped me. Yes. He has delivered me. And he has placed me, called me, chose me, appointed me to be right here, right now, to be able to share all of that. There's so much, so I was like, I didn't want to go too far into it.
We're gonna delve into our conversation. Yes. We'll definitely delve in a little bit deeper. Wow. Just from the introduction of hearing of, some of the things that you've gone through. A lot of people would have stopped back then. So we're definitely going to get in here and delve in, because like I said, I'm going to reiterate this. Listen, you guys, turn your radios up, turn the volume up. I know that Ebone Marie's story is going to help you overcome. Things happen in our lives, but truly it's not meant. God doesn't intend it to kill us, but to help us, become stronger. It's not God doing these certain things to us, but he is making these things work for us so that we can be prepared for purpose. So now that you face, Ebone Marie, so many tremendous struggles within your life from youth. And then of course, we face struggles, at times on a consistent basis. I want you to delve in a little bit deeper about your childhood from before, if you remember. Let's kind of talk about before the loss of your mother and then after the loss of your mother, and how did that affect you at that age and kind of progressively. Can you kind of take us back there?
Yeah. Actually, I remember a lot. And I actually thank God for that, because a lot of people were like, at 5, how much do you really remember before the age of 5? But I remember my mom, she spoiled the mess out of me. She's so loving and caring, and whatever I wanted, she made sure that I had it. She did everything she possibly could to make sure I had everything I needed and wanted. We had a really great relationship. I would say she was my best friend. So it was amazing. We talked, she would talk to me just like we would sit and, have a conversation, girl talk. I remember just sitting and talking with my mom. What do you talk about at 3-4 years old? But, you do. But, yeah, I remember it's like, there were things that it was just normal. And I was always right there with her. Whatever she ate, I ate. Whatever she did, I would want to be right there.
Yeah.
My grandmother will always tell me how I didn't like anyone to touch me. I didn't want anyone to hold me except for my mom, and which was a little difficult because my mom was 4'11" and 90 pounds, and I was a nice, chunky, husky baby. Solid as a rock, and
my goodness.
I looked like a little chocolate Cabbage Patch Kid.
How cute.
I did not like people touching me. I did not like, I wanted to be with my mom.
Yeah.
And, of course, like some family members, but for the most part, I loved my mom. So we were really, really close. When she passed, so she had cancer. And I remember visiting her in the hospital. She would always save me her sugar cookies. So like to this day, sugar cookies are my ultimate favorite, especially when they're made perfect and get taste the butter. And but I would go visit her, and she would have sugar cookies for me. And she actually transitioned home. So she didn't die in the hospital. She actually transitioned home where she had the bed at home. And I would wake up every morning, run downstairs, turn on TV, and we would sit and watch cartoons together. And it was one morning she didn't wake up. And so I ran upstairs to get her boyfriend and said, Mommy's not waking up. She's not responding. And then at that point, that's when, he started to call everyone, and my aunts and everyone were over at the house. And later on that night, from what I remember, she hadn't passed at that time, but I believe she was just too weak to really respond. Yeah. But later on that night, when she did, I was in the room with my cousins playing, and they came and got us. And I didn't really respond. I didn't cry. Actually, my cousin, he cried first. Like, he cried. He boo-hooed. And for me, I kind of just like, okay. They walked us downstairs, and they were like, you could say something to her. I didn't talk. I didn't cry. I didn't do anything. They were like, well, give her a kiss. So I gave her a kiss on the cheek, and that was that. And I remember crying at the funeral, but it was never necessarily a cry for mourning. Okay. That I did not do that when I was a kid. I didn't do that at all.
Okay. And I was going to ask you about that. Like, do you believe that you grieved properly during that time? And I understand being 5 years old, a 5-year-old, do they really know what it means to grieve? But like, did you really understand what was going on at that time? Like that she was never coming back, and
right. And I don't know, just thinking back, like I just remember seeing her in the coffin, and I cried, but it wasn't necessarily a mourn or a grieve. It was, I was sad. And I think at that point I realized, like, she's not coming back, but I still didn't really process what I felt, and at 5 is like, how do you really say what you feel? You don't really know the words, or, how do you truly express yourself? So I didn't. And through my relationship with my dad, at one point in time, he had told me, I'm gonna jump a little bit, but he told me how he didn't know how to process his feelings.
Wow.
And that's what led him on his life path.
Oh.
And I realized, I was like, and I inherited that because I didn't know how to process my feelings. I didn't know how to express it, because my grandmother and grandfather got a divorce when my dad was in middle school, and that hurt him, but he didn't know how to express that. So he acted out, and he went and he did this and he did that. And for me, I was like, that's why I'm the one, I do what I do with my emotions. I inherited that. It's like, I don't know how to process my emotions. I don't know how to say this is what's going on inside of me. So I didn't necessarily act out, but I internalized everything. I kind of kept everything to myself.
Yeah.
And, things would just happen here and there. There were moments that I would have spurts. Like, I remember like certain things happening where I would just get sad, or I would just do something, but it almost seemed like people pacified it because they're like, oh, well, her mom died, so you gotta just, be kind, be nice, instead of really addressing it. Right. It was more, if I did do anything, it was pacified, because for the most part, I was a good kid. I didn't cause too much trouble.
Okay.
I would say my kindergarten year was really hard. So
my goodness.
But after that, I was an A&B student. So, first through 12th grade, kindergarten again, it was a bit rough. But so no, I didn't grieve my mother's death until adulthood. Truthfully.
Okay. Wow. And just listening to that, listening to you from the beginning talk about, how your mother was your best friend. You talked to her all the time. You didn't want anyone else to touch you. That had to affect you, my gosh, in ways that you couldn't even comprehend at that moment. And so I'm sure that had something to do with how you were processing it and not being able to verbalize like, whoa, or internalize like what is really going on. It's like you lost, you know what I mean? Like the closest thing to you, that love and stuff like that. And so with that said, how did that affect your self-esteem? Because if you're so used to being around somebody, so used to receiving that affection, so used to love looking a certain way that it's removed from you, how did that affect your self-esteem? And then can you talk about who are your supporters that kind of helped you through that process?
I would have to say it caused me to be a lot more observant. I didn't really didn't cling to too many. So it was my mom and my dad's mom. So my mom and my grandmother, those were my two. Okay. And so my mom died. They moved me out to Phoenix, so I was away from my grandmother as well. So growing up, I was always with my mom or my grandmother. I do remember that. And not that I wasn't around anyone else, but those were my two that I was like the closest to. And so for my mom to die and then they send me out to Phoenix, then they took me away from my grandmother as well, which is who I was used to outside of my mom. So I became really observant. It was tough. There were moments that I cried that probably people didn't know I was crying. And then I think I was out here I was probably in Phoenix for about a year and a half. And then I moved back to Columbus. And because I was with my grandmother, who I was used to being with, that helped. Unfortunately, again, it wasn't because she didn't really know the best way to help me really grieve. So I never grieved until adulthood, but she was there. She was there to support me and, help me. Unfortunately, it turned out to be a situation where I would be fine. And then all of a sudden I would just have these emotions that I didn't know what to do with. And then I would kind of just like blow up. And she would kind of just leave me alone, and then she would do something that would make me happy, like something that I like to do, take me shopping or go out to eat, or she was try to help me through it the best way she knew how.
Right.
And so, and unfortunately, I didn't know really how to say, like, it hurts not having my mom. But one thing that it did do, even at a young age, if my friends disrespected their mom, I would get on them, like, don't talk to your mom like that.
That's good.
Like, don't do that. Like, I was that kid, like, don't do that. Like, I understand she made you mad, but don't, you only get one mom. And it's like, so don't do that to her. Like, I get it. Yeah, she's getting on your nerves, but don't do that to your mom. Don't say that to her. Don't say that about her. Like, I was a mom advocate, like, at a very, very young age.
Wow.
Because that's the one thing that it did in me, is like, it took the position of mother and put it at a new level for me. And so it was like, I need you guys to understand the importance of a mom and what it means to have her, because I know what it means to not have her.
Wow,
and
that's powerful.
You can't do anything about it.
Right. Yeah. So this whole just talking about this, and especially at the age of 5, it's interesting because, for those, of course, who have followed me and stuff, that with my testimony about being sexually abused at the age of 4 or 5. And so I want you guys, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because it is so imperative that parents and, older, siblings or mentors or whoever surrounded around young kids, talk to them, listen to them, help them interpret things that they don't even know how to interpret or how to verbalize, because things that you go through at that age affects you. And so, within my studies of what I'm doing now, as a therapist, they talk about how we take in and we're sponges from birth all the way to like 6 years old. You learn the bulk of what you're going to learn, or you're the most affected around those ages. And so the things that happen to you, they literally, unfortunately, at times, if it's bad things, it kind of sets the stage as to what you experience moving forward if you don't do anything. If nobody's tending to you, if nobody's paying attention, if nobody is reading, the silence. We have to be able to read the silence. And parents, please read the silence. Aunts, uncles, please read the silence to your nieces, your nephews, or whoever is around you if they deal with trauma, because they may not necessarily know exactly, what to do, but you being an older person, help them, encourage them, bring them to therapy, help them in a way that will be beneficial for their future. So while, Ebone Marie, that is just like unimaginable, the things that you had to endure at that young age, especially with the loss of a parent. And so talking about, I know you kind of talked about school and how you were able to still maintain good grades and stuff like that, but with school, were you able to really blend in with the kids and really to kind of relate to them in a way, especially when schools have so much like proms and they have the dances and stuff where the parents are supposed to, at times be engaged with the students and stuff. And even if you did cheerleading or whatever, how was that, going through your process? And did you have teachers or mentors within the school, friends that kind of helped you through that process? Was it super difficult to kind of complete school during that time with the loss of your mother?
I'll say that I pushed through. There were times that I felt stuff, but again, I didn't know what it was, so I just ignored it. So again, I was really big on internalizing everything. So there were times that it was hard, because, they were like, oh, we're doing this for Mother's Day. They were big with doing stuff and bringing your parents in and all that.
Conferences,
Right. It's like, I have my grandmother, and yes, she's there and she loves me, but it doesn't substitute my mom. And that's a hard part for those who don't have, a mother. No one's ever going to be able to replace her, but there are people who will love you as if you were their own. And so I had that. I did have, my friends and, their parents would always take me in and my best friends, their brothers looked at me like their little sister.
Aww.
They would get on my nerves just like they would get on theirs. So like they looked out for me. They thought they see me out somewhere. They were like, wait a minute, I saw you. It was like, it wasn't me, I promise.
And you were the only child for the audience?
Child.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
I'm the only child. So it was a lot to process by myself.
Yeah.
Because you know, you don't have anybody to lean on. Naturally, your siblings are there. You guys usually come together like, okay, this happened. But it was just me. And my cousins and I are close. We were raised, my mom and her sisters never lived too far away from each other that my cousins and I weren't together a lot. So, you know, they were there, it helped, but there were still those moments, like you were saying, like prom, or, you know, when your body starts changing, and, you know, all those things that your mom usually sits and has those conversations with, you know, it wasn't there. My grandmother did her best, but we have a good 50-year difference between us. So, you know, a lot had changed since she had gone through womanly changes. And so I'm like, Granny, that's not how that works anymore.
Please stop.
Trying to get the cloths. And I'm like, wait, no.
I just said the cloth, baby. We can't do that. Take me to the stove.
I'm like, wait, no, that's not, no. Granny, that's not how it works. We don't do that anymore.
Wow.
But, you know, my uncle, he's married, they're still married. So, you know, my aunt would step in at times to help out as well. But again, it still goes back to, until you really grieve, there's always a part where you kind of just push people away. So there were still things that I wasn't sharing with everyone. And it was really hard. Like, even so, it was my mom and her my mom and two of her sisters were pregnant at the same time.
Oh my goodness.
And
whoa.
And so I was born, well, and it actually, because my aunt's best friend was pregnant at the same time, so it was 4 of them at the same time. So I was born in December, and then we have my aunt's best friend daughter was born in January, and then my cousin was born in February, and then the 4th one, he came in April. So we were like back to back. And so my aunt that was pregnant, that had my cousin in February, her and my mom, they were I believe they were 1 year apart. And my mom was like, I want a boy. My aunt was like, I want a girl. And they both had the opposite. So my mom would always say, you had my boy and I had your girl.
Wow.
And so they were really, really close. And my cousin, like that's my cousin. That I love him. And you know, some people thought, like, even growing up, they would think we were twins, but like, we're not. We're just cousins. Like, even today, you can look at us and people are like, oh, you guys do favor each other. But unfortunately, his mom died when we were 17.
Wow. Isn't that something? That's something though, how, you know, it's like we don't know every detail within our lives, but it's something how God can see all things. And so he'll make sure that there are other people that are born around the same time as us, or some people that can be supportive for us, so that we can go through the process, so that we can literally make it through what we're supposed to get to purpose. And so that's so powerful. You said it was like, what, 4 people born around the same time. So literally you were God had kind of like set up a support system for you without you even knowing, because you guys didn't know that was going to happen at 5 and 17, but it did. And so it kind of, you know what I mean?
Right. And he's the cousin that cried when they said that my mom died.
Wow.
So, and something that had happened is, about a month before my aunt passed, I had came out to visit, and we were sitting and we were talking, and she was like, you scared me because you never cried for your mom. And I was like, you know, I didn't really say anything, but, you know, we were talking, and she kind of like was, now that like looking back, it was kind of like her way of preparing me to let me know like she was getting ready to transition. Because she was just telling me things, and I was like, okay. And, I enjoyed my time with her. We were just laying in bed and falling asleep, just, being with my aunt. And then about a month later, she ended up having to go to the hospital, fell into a coma and passed away.
No.
And when she died, I cried harder.
Wow.
Because it wasn't just for her, but it was her and my mom. But I still didn't really process it. And I thought I was good. I thought I got through it. But then my cousin got married about 6 years ago. He got married and they had a table set up because his wife, her parents had passed as well.
Wow.
So they had a table set up with the pictures of loved ones that were no longer there. And so I was inside because they got married on a farm. So I was inside the house and my cousin was like, Ebony, come here, we're going to take pictures. So I was like, okay. So we were walking out and we go past this table and I stopped. He didn't tell me.
Okay.
Didn't tell me about the table. So I was not prepared.
Yeah.
And I seen it and I just immediately tears just fell. And I was like, why didn't you tell me you were doing it? I started to get mad, but then I stopped and I was like, she was supposed to be here.
Wow.
And, so, oh, geez.
Yeah.
But that was something, it started something in me because then I was like, well, when my time comes to have I'm not going to have my mom there to do the wedding dress and all that stuff. So it still hurts a little. Not even gonna lie, because when you're an adult, there's things that you go through that you're like, I want my mom there for the wedding. When I have a baby, a lot of people was like, my mom came and stayed with me for the first month that I had the baby. And it's like those types of stories is
that don't happen. Yeah, you want to experience.
That don't happen.
So, and people, listen, this is live. You know what I mean? This is real stuff. I want to bring everyone authentic people that are transparent to their process, people that have overcome a lot, but still are real, are human, still have emotions and feelings. Because if we are authentic examples and if we could be real, we can then authentically help another person. So Ebone Marie is on here pouring out her heart and she's emotional right now. But this right here is to encourage you guys, to let you know that if you are still feeling from trauma, still feeling from a loss of a loved one, you can make it through. And the proof of it is that, she's still here. You know what I mean? I'm still here. We're still standing regardless of what's happened to us in our lives. So hang in there, you guys. You're going to make it. Wow, Ebony, that is so, it's so touching what you're talking about. And I want to transition into this next thing, and it kind of, it goes with, we're talking about school and stuff. And so I know you said growing up, you were in school, you had the good grades and stuff, but we also previously talked about how, through the loss and through all of that, you dealt with bullying. Let's talk about this, because this is such an unfortunate situation and subject, and it's definitely frowned upon. And the interesting thing is, when I was in school, I was like the mediator. I was so young, but I always drew people to me that would tell me about their problems, and I would encourage them, and I would go to the other person and I would listen to what happened, and then I would come up with a remedy or come up with some type of solution, and then they would be friends again. And it happened, and it was so funny. It's nothing that I've asked for, but when people would be bullied or messed with, they would come to me for help. And so just on the other side of that, you actually dealing with bullying. Let's talk about this, because this has to stop within schools. It's unfortunate with the shootings and everything else that's going on, because these kids are crying out. They're being harassed at school. They're being bullied. What happened? What happened when did this start, and how did you overcome this, and how did this affect your life, in your adulthood or moving forward?
So, I have to say that I am lucky that my bullying was never physical. It was always verbal, or just action oriented, because times where it was like, oh, the whole group of girls, oh, we're not going to talk to her right now. And so, they kind of just like, you get shunned.
Wow.
And unfortunate situations where it was like, it went around everybody at one point in time and the group got shunned for one reason or another. But mine was a lot more on my complexion. So, she, so many different names to be called. And one thing that I realized it was is that I was still quiet. I kept to myself. If we were friends, and I would talk with you. But I really, I wasn't. I still kind of kept this to myself, and I was the easy target. The ones who don't talk much, those are the easy targets. And that was one thing that coincidentally, my one of my best friends was someone who used to pick on me when we were in elementary school.
Oh, wow. Whoa. What? The tides have turned. What in the world? Whoa.
Yeah. And her son, her firstborn, is my godson. So like, that's how close we are. That's my sister. I love her. And we talk about it all the time. I tell people when we first met, we did not like each other. I was like, she was rude. She was mean. She was a bee. Like, she was raw and mean. And it's like, I just couldn't stand her. And people were like, I can't believe you're saying that about her. I was like, I told her to her face. Like, she knows.
Wow.
And she would say, yep, nope, I was. She's like, but I picked on Ebony because she was quiet. She was an easy target. But she was mean for no reason. And she knows she was. So
wow.
But it was something that we were at elementary school together. And then middle school, we went to separate middle schools. And then when we were juniors in high school, we were at two still separate schools, but same career center. And we actually happened to be in the same program together.
Wow.
And that was our first time seeing each other since 5th grade. And it was like, but we seen each other and we're like, oh my gosh, it's so nice to see you.
Wow.
Like none of that ever happened.
Right.
But even though we would still talk about it, I'm like, she's so mean. She's like, I was like, because when you know who you are and you confess to what you did, then when somebody says it, it's not gonna you're not gonna take offense to it.
Right,
you're like, no, I was mean, and I know I had my moments. I was mean to people. That was my way of lashing out because other people were mean to me. And so it was very interesting. Someone who used to just talk about me and tease me and get on my nerves and make me cry is one of my favorite people. Yeah. Now.
Wow.
And again, I'm her first child's godmother. So
how things can turn.
That just shows you how close we are.
Wow. So when you're talking about bullying and the things that you dealt with, you said a lot of the comments and stuff was about your complexion. Did at any point did it like make you not want to live, make you want to commit suicide? I mean, how did that affect you like internally already with the loss of your parent, and then you're going to school and now you're getting picked on, you're getting bullied, about your complexion and all of that. Well, I mean, thank God, in the world that we live in today, people are more so embracing their complexions and embracing, how melanated we are and things like that. So, yeah, like, you ever thoughts of suicide or anything like that? Depression? Like how else did it really affect you?
So I have to say that I never thought of suicide, but depression was my that was my go-to, and I didn't realize it. I didn't understand that that's what it was. Even as an adult, I didn't understand what it was. Wow. Like I always say, you go to the doctors, like, do you ever feel depressed? I was like, what does that mean? Like, what does depression feel like? Not realizing that I lived majority of my life in depression.
Wow.
So it was a norm for me. So I didn't know. I would have to push myself to do stuff. And I am a shy person, but it went a little further than that and I didn't realize it.
Wow.
So it was more like I would prefer to stay home, but it's not because I'm shy, but it's more because I just have that, like, you know, if I put myself out there again, you know, this could happen, that could happen. And, right. Yeah. And I was like, then I'd just be hurting again. It's like, so to protect myself, you know, I, you know, limit myself to who I'm gonna talk to. And, you know, and even with that, there were still times where I still didn't talk to people. And people were like, Ebony, never, you know, you don't talk to nobody, but it was part of that. Depression was I don't want to talk. Like it was me protecting myself. Let me pull away from you to prevent me being able to be hurt. Because my experience in being in big groups of people was something always turned out to be my fault, or somebody would say something that would hurt my feelings or hurt me or make me feel bad about myself, make me feel worse. And then it's like, what's the point of even doing all this? And I would never think to physically hurt myself, but my behaviors. So I had, you know, unhealthy behaviors that could hurt me. You know, so even from smoking weed to drinking every night or every other night, or, you know, having bad eating habits. So, you know, not eating as much as I should, or, you know, it's like, well, I can go a day without eating, and not that I wanted to, but and not that I was busy, because, you know, we've had days like, or I was just ripping and running and I didn't
forget, right?
This would be right. I forgot. I just forgot. But it wasn't that I forgot to eat. It was, I don't feel like eating.
Yeah.
I don't have appetite.
Depression.
Like, why?
Wow. That is
like, nah.
Whew, that's a real thing.
How it hit me.
Yeah, that's a real thing. And I think more people need to talk about, or be willing to talk about subjects like this, you know, about depression, you know, and we're talking about, you know, of course, the makeover, you know, going from the things we've been through and how literally our lives can be turned around for better, you know, but going through depression, a lot of people don't want to talk about things that would kind of expose what they went through. You know, some people say, hey, if I was depressed, that means nobody, you know, people are going to talk about me to this day. It's sad because a lot of people are more, you know, they're worried more about their image, their outside appearance, how people view them, versus the inside, versus, you know, their inner health and their soul health and mental health. And this is why you hit, you know, a very, you know, important point about, if a person's depressed and they're not really dealing with that, then they go to other things. They go to drugs, they go to alcohol, you know, they can become, you know, promiscuous, you know, having multiple sex partners, and end up with STD, sexually transmitted disease, that they can't get rid of. And all the time, it all rooted from the depression, because they did not deal with the depression. So that is a huge point, you guys. I want you guys to really take the time to look within self and say, what do I see that's repeated within my life that is bringing me to a negative cycle, that negative pattern, and then go get help. I said it earlier, but literally go get help, because your life is worth more than your image, is worth more than, you know, than being worried about what people think about you. And so while that's very powerful. Thank you for your transparency when talking about this. And so I kind of want to talk more now about your father. So you mentioned earlier how he dealt with his situation, because he was, you know, a product of a divorced parent. Parents were divorced when he was in middle school. And then he really didn't know, you know, coming into the relationship, or having the mother of his child pass away, he really didn't know how to process that. And that led to some events that happened in his life. So can you talk more about your relationship with your father, and was he a huge part with you with growing up, and how is your relationship with him today?
So he was there in and out. I would say, like, looking back, it seemed more like we were brother and sister than we were father and daughter. And I say that because there would be times where I'm like, he would be there at the house with us, and I was like, well, I want to watch TV. He was like, well, I'm watching it right now. Like, I want to watch TV. Give me the channel. Like, I'm gonna change the channel. And we start bickering back and forth, and then you hear my grandmother yell down the stairs, let her watch TV. And, you know, he would kind of just get frustrated, like, you know, she don't have to get away all the time, but it was kind of like that. But he loves me, and he loved the mess out of me. Like, anytime if he had, and I wanted, he would give. Like, he would always do what he could. He's very, very smart. So he could sit there and read the lesson and be able to say, oh, okay, well, this is what it's talking about. So he would help me with my homework. He would help me roll my hair at night. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, we would do those things. We would cook together, and although I was like, I would do this, I hated frying stuff because I didn't like the grease popping up on me. Right. But he would be like, just put it in there. I was like, you know, just like one at a time. Yeah. Back. He was like, oh my. Right. He's like, let me do it. I'm like, okay. But, you know, he was the one who really got me into cooking. And I was like, you know, I enjoy cooking. And I cook when I'm happy. You know, so it's like, I'm always like, if I'm cooking, I'm usually in the kitchen, I'm cooking and I'm dancing. But he's the one who got me. I cook and dance. But he's the one who got me into cooking. And, you know, we make homemade fries, or, you know, mashed potatoes, and, you know, whatever, just small, simple stuff. But he's the one who got me into that. I was like, oh, I want to cook with you. And he would never tell me no. And, you know, I would lay all up on him. I would just smother him, and he just kind of lay there and take it. But, you know, so we had our moments, but we, you know, the good and the bad, and which was difficult because, again, his journey was a little harder, and still is. So, you know, he's been in and out of jail the majority of my life. And, now I'm there, as much as I can to support him. I haven't, there's more that I would like to do for him, but I just don't have the means to do so. But when God opens that door for me, I will. But more now is, because I had to get to a point where my expectations for him, I had to let that go. Wow. And so my father hurt came because he failed to meet the expectations that I thought he should be filling. And not understanding that he was going through his own grieving process. He was going through his own, and he, you know, he was already struggling with dealing with his parents being separated. Now the woman who gave birth to his child dies, and now he has to go through, you know, we don't think about how, you know, grief affects other people. And as I got older, I began to understand, it's like, oh, you know, I had these expectations of him. And it was fair but unfair at the same time. You know, it's like when we go into a relationship, I have these expectations for you, but I haven't explained to you what they are, and you're not meeting them. So now I'm getting upset with you.
Now you're getting upset.
And that's pretty much right. Now I'm getting upset. And that's what I had to do with my dad, because my expectation was, my mom died, so you need to step up. And like, why weren't you here? Why didn't you do this? Why did, you know, there's all these whys. But then when he began to open up to me, and we began to have that conversation, I realized, like, he's still grieving. He's still learning. He's still learning about himself. Like, he's just being able to open up and say, you know, I really didn't know how to express myself. I really didn't know how to process this. And I'm like, man, and me realizing, like, I'm a lot like you. And he can point it out too. He's like, oh, well, you get that from me. You know, I'm sorry, you know, but it's true. And I'm like, so now it's more, when I do get a chance to talk with him, I want to be supportive. I'm proud of him for not giving up, because the struggle's real. Real life situations. It's hard to break out of cycles. And,
that's so true.
And because you're not able to move outside of the normal, so then you're staying you're trying to break out of a cycle, but still be in the same area where the cycle started. So it's hard to break out of that. And that's one thing that it is really hard for those who want to change their life. Like, I want to make the change and I want to do good. I want it, but I'm in this cycle, but I can't get out of the area. Like, how do I break the cycle, but I have to stay in the same area? But a lot of people can't leave that area because they're on probation, or there's all these restrictions. And it's like, but I want to be freed from this, but you keep putting me back in the same environment, expecting something different.
Wow.
And so it began to really, I began to like, okay, I get it. And, and guys was like, just love him, release those expectations that you have off of him, and receive him for who he is and where he is right now. And just talk with him. When we have the chance to talk, we talk, and and I love on him, and I tell him, I'm happy that you called me. Like, I do. I get excited to hear his voice. I'm not ashamed of him at all, because again, we all have our own journey. My only thing is like, I pray that he can enjoy life outside of those cycles that he's in. Because there's so much more that God has for him. So it definitely is like a growth process that, God revealing to me, like, okay, so you were hurt. So how do you think he felt? And, and what it felt like when, you just broke up with somebody, but you still, if you wanted to try to get back with them, but he would never be able to get back with her because she's gone, So, and even when my mom died, she was with somebody else. So it's a whole process. Layers on top of that. Layers on top of layers on top of layers. So it was really just coming to a point where, and that's one of my prayers is always like, God, teach me to love people the way you love me. Teach me to have grace for people the way that you have grace. And that's what really allowed me to begin to open my eyes and see. It's like, I see, I get it now.
You hit the nail on the head with two things I was going to say. Definitely going through situations like this, and this is so important for the audience, for you guys to hear. We have to have grace for people. We have to have grace for people because you don't know exactly what that person is going through. And also expectations, unreal expectations is one of the biggest factors that break up anything. Relationships. It'll make you leave your job. It will make you abruptly do things prematurely because an expectation is something that you came up with in your own head, and 99.9% of the time, the other person have no idea what you're expecting because we don't communicate that. A lot of times as human beings, we assume things and we're like, well, they should know how to be my father. Well, they should know how to be my man, or the guys, they should know how to be, your woman. But we have to learn how to communicate, have grace, give grace to people, because that's what promotes growth. Grace promotes growth, not spewing out unrealistic expectations. So that is beautiful that you came to those realizations, because really it helps you with everything moving forward within your life. You like, wow, some people see in life, I don't look at things as losses, but as a learning lesson, oh, I did this or I did that and look how it happened. Okay, it's not a loss, it's a learning lesson so that I can do something better next time. And so the things that you've gone through so far really have prepared you to be the person you are today, to be the person that God is allowing you to even become, in the future. And so it's powerful that, again, we take the lemons and we squeeze it, mix all the ingredients together and make some wonderful bomb lemonade that's going to sell out. You know what I mean? Our perspectives within life really helps us either reach where we're supposed to, or it keeps us stagnant. And so that's so powerful that you talked about that. So let's talk about and I honor you for being so transparent with your story. I know this is going to help people. So let's talk about how, like, all the stuff that you've gone through within life. And of course, we haven't even, of course, talked about all of the other stuff, that, what I mean? The details of other stuff, but
so
we're hitting some major points. So how have all those experiences affected other parts of your life? You know what I mean? Like relationships or how have it?
There was a saying that I read the other day, and it was pretty much saying like, everything affects who you are. And it's true. Everything affects who you are. When this happened to me, that's when I stopped talking. So now I don't talk today because of this. When this happened to me, I started to look and see, like, what, I need to be prepared to make sure. So that's why I have this blockage up here as an adult, because something that happened to me when I was 10. Like this, everything affected and it molded me to be who I was. So everything that happened to me from birth all the way up until 20 years old affected who the 24-year-old was. Like all that had something to do. And even till today, it has something to do with who I am today, because it was through those things that I had to be delivered and set free from and healed from that allowed me to be who I am today. So everything that happens to us affects us in one way or another, but it goes on. Do I do it? Do I take it and take the negative out of it? Or do I take it and I find the positive? I find the lessons learned. I see this is how I'm going to utilize this. This is how I will face these challenges in the future. If I'm ever put in this position, or this is how I will use this, I will allow my character to be built through this and not broken. I remember there was one of my shows was like breakdown or breakthrough. Which one are you going to do? You're going to either break down because of the situation, or it's going to cause you to break through. So once I began to truly walk on my journey and began to learn me and learn who I was and what made me who I was at that time, then I began to go through that process of healing and began to understand why does that hurt, and understand why I act the way I do, and began to discover who Ebone Marie really is, because I was not myself. I was a whole bunch of cover-ups. Like I had so much covering that I had did because of everything that happened to me up until the point of me beginning to go through that journey. I was just like throwing on another layer, layer. And I didn't even recognize me. I didn't know who I was. And so then I had to start peeling off all of those layers until I got to the point where it was like, that's who I am?
Wow.
And I went through that. Like, that's how that affected me. Like, it was almost like, I didn't even realize that affected me. Like, some of the things that you just do not know. You heard it and you're like, that don't bother me none. It really does bother you.
And you gotta deal with it.
You gotta deal with it. And there's like, even as a child, when you hear adults arguing and you hear them arguing and you hear your name in it, that affects you, whether you think it does or not. Some kids try to take it and like, oh, I heard them, they were arguing about me, I need to be good. And so then they're always walking on eggshells to make sure they don't do anything or make anything bad. I did it. Like, I was always like, okay, I need to make sure I don't need anyone to be mad at me. I didn't, even though I still messed up and I made mistakes, but what it did is when I did mess up and make mistakes unconsciously, I took that in and was like, beat myself up. Like, oh my gosh, you're so stupid. Why would you do that? And then, or some kids would start acting out because they hear the parents arguing over them and all that stuff. So like, those things really do affect you. You just don't realize it. So when I start to peel all that stuff back and really understand, like, that all made me. Like, that made me. Like, seriously, that made me who I was. But that's not who God had called me to be. So I had to go through that process and face the ugly stuff. And, there's still stuff that I'm like, wow, I didn't even realize that was something that I felt or something that I dealt with. That is like, it's an ever learning process of yourself.
Ever learning process. That is so powerful. It really is. I like to say that, the situations you go through in life, it's refining your character. God defines us, and what we go through refines us. And so sometimes we'll be so covered with multiple layers of hurt, of abuse, of low self-esteem, and of all this stuff. And as we allow God to come in, he can unpeel the layers. He can say, hey, that's not who I created you to be. I'm going to take this layer off. And then eventually we are in awe of the real us, of the authentic us. And so that's beautiful. Right. So what are some practical things you've done to get through your healing process? And so now we're transitioning into the makeover. You start talking about it. What are some practical things that, you have done, a person can do to go through their healing process?
Prayer.
That's good. That's powerful. That's
my number one is prayer. Is I admit it, like, God, I'm hurting.
That's
and
good.
God knew I was hurting, but I didn't want to face it. So God can't fix anything if I don't release it. So if I'm not admitting it, we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. So if I'm not speaking what is going on with me, then there's no way that he can heal it. So as I began to pray and say, this hurts, why does this hurt? What is this? And he began to reveal to me, like, that was from this, and that happened when this happened, and that happened when this happened, because I was molested as
let's see here. Okay, we're gonna come back to that. Okay. flip your thing over. Right. Flip your thing back over. Okay. All right. So
okay.
So what
ways now? Okay.
All right. So what were you saying?
Oh, so like, I was molested as a young child too. So there's different things from that. And even with that, I would say, I forgave that person who did it, but I never talked about it. I mentioned it to one person and that was it. And so it wasn't something that I was really discussed. It was just like, just kind of like, let it go. But that did affect me. That's
absolutely
what changed my, my thought process. And it actually opened doors to different things for me. And so it was, prayer was my biggest piece. It's like,
that's
God
good.
just showed me. But it can't happen unless you have an open heart to be ready. You got to be ready.
That's good.
Go through it.
That's so good.
Being ready. And so prayer, reading the word, and just listening to different sermons and testimonies. I started to hear different sermons from people that I never thought I would listen to, and getting into groups that are there to help develop you into becoming who you are. Like those small groups are very important because they help you look at things in a different perspective. So I would do stuff like Wife Academy with Pastor Jerry and Tanisha Flowers, where they're bringing up stuff that you're like, wow, that's real.
right.
I never thought of that. I never really would have seen that. But those are the type of things. Those are the three big things that I did. I prayed, I read my word, and I was listening to sermons and in group sessions to learn more.
That's powerful. I think number one thing a person can do, definitely in addition to that, is have a relationship with God. And it's not about something of religiosity, but it's literally about when you pay attention and when you open your heart up to receive him, He comes in and he does what no one else can do.
Mm-hmm.
He does. I'm trying to tell you, he will reveal stuff to you when nothing makes sense, when there are no answers. You've been seeking, you've been doing that, you feel like you've exhausted every option. Having a relationship with God will literally give you the guidance. It'll give you, it's the tool, that you need to go to the other resources. It's so important. And then I'm going to add also therapy. Therapy. A lot of people look at that, when I talk about, my story and, people have heard it and whatnot, but God did things with me differently. I didn't more so feel comfortable telling family everything. And so God understood that I needed a neutral party that didn't necessarily know, family, or didn't necessarily they weren't hanging out with people that I would hang out on a regular basis. And so God, he gave me the green light after so much stuff was happening to go to therapy, go to a counselor, and I'm, pro counselor, being, training to be a therapist myself. But going to a counselor, I went to a Christian counselor. That was one of the best things I could ever do.
Yes.
They were able to give me practical steps, such as you can write a letter to that person that got hurt at 4 or 5 years old, and you let them know everything's going to be okay. There's so many different practical things that you can do, and a therapist can help you guys. There's huge stigma. There's this, unfortunately, there's a negative connotation when you hear therapy, and especially in the African American community, in the Black community. And it's sad because a lot of people think if you go see a therapist, you're crazy, you're mentally ill and all this stuff. But the truth is, if we continue to push everything under the rug, you're not going to heal. You're not going to be all that you can be. You're not going to get to the place, you're not going to be able to turn that lemon into lemonade, because you're just sticking with the lemon and you're hiding it. And eventually that stuff will come out. It comes out, like Ebony was saying, it comes out in all different forms. And I'll say more specifically, for me, it came out in relationships. I could see progress and success in every other area of my life, but in relationships, romantic relationships, I said something is still broken. And then you begin to see patterns of you being, having low self-esteem, or, doing all sorts of stuff in relationships. You're like, where is this coming from? And it's because of that root that needs to be dealt with. And so you guys, what we're talking about is real. You have to get, once again, it's my third time saying it, get help when you need help, I'm telling you. And so your makeover, we just talked about bits and pieces of it, but from where you've been to what I've seen you be, growing to be this, this beautiful woman of God, is absolutely amazing as to the makeover that God has allowed within your life, and how you've taken pain and you literally allowed it to become purpose. So I want to ask you, as we begin to wrap this thing up, what are 3 of the most important things that you've learned throughout your process? And what would you tell people who are facing either traumatic experiences right now, or, what would you tell them? So what are 3 things that you've learned through this all? And what would you tell a person if a person was standing in front of you and they were currently in a domestic violence situation or something, and, they were facing trauma? What would you tell that person? What would you tell people?
3 things that I learned. 1, it's okay to not be okay.
That's good.
It's okay to feel. It's okay to be emotional. There's nothing wrong with that. And express it healthily, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's okay not to be okay. And the second thing I would say is, my thing is love yourself.
That's so good.
Take the time out for you. Take the time out to learn you and continue to learn you. It's it's a never ending thing, because as we get older, our tastes change, our perspective on things change. And so it is really on, take care of you and love you. And then I would have to say the third thing is never take your focus off of God.
That's so good.
because that as long as your focus is on him, everything else falls into line, even when it hurts. Like Erica was saying, you know, the scriptures in Romans, like it's all things are going to work together for the good for those who love and who are in Christ Jesus. So it's just keep your focus on him. And anyone who's going through right now, I would say you're not alone. Everything you're feeling, somebody else feels. So don't feel that you're alone and there's no one who will understand. There's no one who can help you. There's no one, you are not by yourself. You're not isolated, because somebody understands. Somebody gets it. It may be a person you least expected, but somebody does. And seek help. Therapy is awesome. I just started therapy. And it's like, what? I was missing out. But I look forward to my therapy sessions. Like, I'm like, listen. My therapist is like, oh.
Yes. You do the yes, right?
I'm like, wait a minute. I got to sit down on her couch and I'm like, listen. She's like, uh-oh. Like,
right. She ready for like, what's going on? Yeah.
Because, you know, when things are going good and then when you hit that, you're like, time out, wait a minute. So.
Oh my goodness.
But that would be my thing is like, you're not alone.
That's good.
And there's somebody who can help you. And I pray that, you know, if you don't know the Lord, ask him into your heart and he will lead you to the right person to help you, because you do want that proper help. You want to make sure it's someone who is helping you grow and leading you to healing and deliverance, and not someone who will manipulate and use you, because yes, that is unfortunately a truth in many situations, is that someone sees the hurt and manipulates it. So just seek God and how and who to help you. But no matter what, I would say therapy is definitely on the top of the list as well, because it does wonders when you're able to speak someone who doesn't have a bias. They're getting nothing out of you telling them the story.
Right. That's so good. Yes.
So
that's absolutely beautiful. Thank you for those keys.
You're welcome.
Yes, this has been an amazing conversation, and I know you guys have enjoyed it. So, Ebone Marie, can you tell the people how can they get connected with you?
Yes. So currently, I am under construction. However, you can still find me on Facebook under Ebone Marie, and that's EBONE MARIE. So you can definitely connect with me on Facebook, and I will have my website up soon. I do things in perfection and excellence, so I have to make sure everything is in order before I release everything else out. But you can definitely connect with me that way, or if you want to email me, I do engagements as well, so you can always reach out to me at info@eboneMarie.com.
Okay, and once again, how do you spell Ebone? You went kind of fast. EBONE. Yes, Queen.
Marie, MARIE.
Yes, because we want people to be able to find you. She spells Ebony with the E at the end, you guys. So we have been super blessed by Ebone Marie being on the show today. I know that you guys were encouraged, and if you guys have questions, you could definitely, reach out to her. You guys wanted to bless her, you could reach out to her. She gave you ways to do that. So definitely stay connected to her. And I do want you guys to remember that I have the products. I have products as well. You can go on to Amazon, and I'm going to share this book more today. It's called The Loud Secret, and it talks about pretty much everything that we were talking about today. The importance of dealing with soul health, the importance of dealing with yourself, the importance of going through your process, you guys, because what we want you to understand, we've both gone through separate individual processes. The journeys that God took us on has looked differently, but the ultimate goal has been health, has been healing. So your process may look different. Her top threes, she suggested it and it was beautiful, wonderful. You may have other things that you want to go out and search after. My things may be different, but listen, you have to, this is why it's important to be able to connect with God so that he can tell you how your healing process looks. Everything that Ebony shared on here today has been absolutely beautiful. And you grab a hold of my book on Amazon, The Loud Secret, under Erica Holmes. And I have another book called Singles Let's Deliberate. This book right here talks about my journey, my healing process. And these are, this is just to encourage you. And so I know that it will bless your life, as well as I have products and stuff you guys can hit me up. You connect with me on my website at www.erica, ERICADHOLMES, D as in Denver, HOLMES.com. And I have my brand out, you guys, Kings Get Queens, Queens Get Kings, and some other gear, accessories and stuff. Go ahead, show her. Yes, see, Ebone Marie is on here rocking the Queens Get Kings. Yes. And so everything that I do it for purpose. So the brand and stuff, it's not about bringing a name or a light to myself, but it's to fulfill purpose and to shine for the kingdom. And so, yes, you guys, subscribe to the podcast. If you haven't subscribed, follow me on social media, Eri_HOLMES. And we're going to connect. Thanks again for tuning in with us. And like I always like to say, remember to renew your mind. It is the gold mine. Love you guys.